Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Dennis Galvin's campaign kickoff. I'm Paul Rose. I'm Dennis's campaign manager. Very proud to be to play in that role, and I think we're all here for what we expect to be a fun time. Now, depending on how well you know Dennis, you know he's a kind of guy that goes after things. And we have with us today, we're honored by two distinguished visitors who also are known for going after things, who evidently heard about Dennis and know enough about Dennis that they took time out of their busy schedules, not because it was a nice day to take a ride to Westford, but because this is important. It's important for not only our district, but for the state. We have Shauna O'Connell, who from elected in 2011 to the 3rd Bristol District, who's been very key in expecting transparency and accountability, pointing out issues with the EBT system and its management here in the state. We also have Mr. Jim Lyons, elected in 2010 from the 18th Essex District. Also has been working closely with Shauna towards that end, expecting accountability from our state. The only thing else you'll hear from me today, please make sure you sign the guest list, if you will, and hopefully everybody will join us after we're done here for the reception at Bix Bite. That's where the free food is, and you'll have more than an opportunity to pin Dennis up against the wall and ask him any questions you want to ask him. Restrooms are right there. If there's a fire, we're all going to go that way, and we're not going to talk about money because we're in a town building. And with that, Jim, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Very nice to be here with you all today. I got to meet Dennis a couple of months ago, and he told me that he was going to run for state representative, and I was excited as heck because now I won't be the oldest person in the Republican caucus. Now, I don't want any wise comments about, well, Dennis looks. I won't be the oldest person in the caucus. So the thing that attracted me to Dennis is exactly what was just said, is that Dennis appears to be someone who really wants to fight to fundamentally change the direction of Beacon Hill, and that's what we have to do. That's why Shauna ran, and that's why I ran. Quite frankly, on Beacon Hill today, they're doing three things. They're taking our money away from us, and they're giving it to people who aren't entitled to it and who are breaking the rules. They're taking our rights away from us, things that belong to us, licenses, for example, and they're giving those to people who aren't entitled to us. And they're also taking our children away from us. I don't know whether you've been following this Pelletier case, but they're also taking our children away from us. And we need people on Beacon Hill who are committed to fighting against the power brokers that have decided over the last generation that they know better than we do. I got to know Shauna O'Connell after she got elected in 2011, and she came from Taunton, and she had a very difficult fight down there. I think she won by 54 votes. And I was watching her one day taking on the power brokers on Beacon Hill. I was sitting in the last row, and Shauna sits right in front of me, and I see her down there, and she's going right back to the Democrats. And right in their face, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. And you've all heard about the EBT abuse that's taken place on Beacon Hill. We wouldn't hear about it if it wasn't for the efforts of Shauna O'Connell. Shauna O'Connell is the kind of fighter that we need on Beacon Hill, and that's what we believe Dennis is going to do, is going to join us to push back against the Democratic power brokers on Beacon Hill. People ask me all the time, how did we get this bad? How did it get this bad? It got this bad because they fought for what they believed in, and we allowed them to take it away from us. How are we going to change Beacon Hill? There is only one way to change Beacon Hill, and that is to change the agenda. And the only way we can change the agenda is one state representative district at a time. Currently, there are 30 of us on Beacon Hill. We need to get to 81. There are 160 members of the House of Representatives. So the new motto on Beacon Hill is 81 state representatives before I get to 81. Now people say, well, we don't have much time. Well, We have plenty of time, and we have plenty of people that are willing to fight, and one of the best leaders that we have on Beacon Hill is Shauna O'Connell. So I'd like to introduce my friend, Representative Shauna O'Connell. You're welcome.
Thanks very much, and I want to thank Jim for working with me all the time. He is one of the true fighters up there. We call him the Lion of the State House, Jim Lyon, so I'm always proud to be there. And I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today and every day helping out Dennis, because he cannot do it without your help. And I'll tell you, Jim said I won by 54 votes on my first election. That was generous. I won by 31 votes. So I will tell you, every single vote counts, and every vote that you can help Dennis get counts, because let me tell you something else. It can be done. I took out an 18-year incumbent in 2010. I was a first-time candidate. I had never run for anything except for, student council in 7th grade, which I lost, by the way. But anyway, so you guys can do it. We are really at a pivotal moment here in Massachusetts, like Jim was saying, where 2014 is a year that we can make change. People are paying attention, and people want to see change. And we've got great candidates like Dennis that want to go up there and do something real. Dennis has served his community and this state his whole life, whether it be as a state police officer, a local elected official, and particularly, of course, very importantly, as a dad in his community, raising his family and being involved. He's done his time. He's put in his service. Right now, he should be on the golf course in sunny Florida sipping an iced tea. But he's not. He's here because he wants to keep fighting for his family, for your families, and for this community. And that is exactly what we need on Beacon Hill. We've got a train wreck right now, and the conductor for the past 7 years has been DeVal Patrick. Dennis wants to help us put this train back on track, get Massachusetts moving forward again. And he brings with him the experience, the knowledge, the passion, and the commitment to get that done, especially when it comes to safety, keeping our neighborhood safe, keeping the state safe. Dennis has got the experience that we need. Business, he's got the experience that we need. You ask him any numbers, he knows his numbers, and he knows how to run business, and he knows how to get jobs created in this state. That's what people care about right now, creating jobs, keeping our streets safe. So I am going to be so proud to work with Dennis up on Beacon Hill. We've got Jim Lyons up there, Jeff Deal, Mark Lombardo, real fighters. We need more. We can't just have seat warmers that go up there and push a button. We get up there, we debate the issues, and that's what Dennis is going to do. He's going to make a real difference for all our families. Thank you for your support. I am very honored right now and proud to be here, honored to introduce Dennis Galvin for State Representative.
Thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, thank you to Paul Rose for his coordinating ability. Thank you, Jim Lyons, for that remark. And I don't know, we'll argue about who is older later on, but we'll see what happens. And and Shauna, I can't. That was a very, very, very moving introduction, and I just want to live up to what your expectations are, and I'm going to try my hardest to do it. Shauna talked about a train wreck, and I wanted to start off by saying that, trying to change things is never easy. And the one thing that you do hope for is that logic and common sense eventually will overcome and save the day. And I want to tell you a little story about a train wreck, which I think will kind of institute or try to illustrate my point. And my grandfather told me this story many years ago. It was about this young Irishman who worked for one of our local railroads in this area. And back in those days, the Irish were not exactly welcome into the higher elements of society, and there were a lot of signs that said Irish need not apply. Well, the things started to change, and at one point, the railroad decided to offer a an opportunity to compete for the prestigious job of being a switchman, which you sit up in the big tower, you get to move the things around. That was a very high-profile type of operation for somebody who'd been working pounding nails in. So this young Irishman decided to rise in the world, wanted to go forward, and what he did was he decided to take the exam. So he bought the books, he studied hard night and day, day and night, and then he went for the appointment. And to get the appointment, he had to be able to take an oral exam on his knowledge of the railroad. Well, there were 3 foremen who were assigned to do that job, and none of the foremen wanted to see an Irishman take this position. So what happened is they began to, confident that he wouldn't answer the questions right, they began to ask him the questions. Well, sure enough, he got the first question right. Second question, got the second question right. Third question, got the third question right. The foremen now are getting nervous. So what happens? They decide to take a timeout, step outside the room, and they huddle. Says, the way things are going, this guy's going to get this job. What are we going to do? Well, one of the foremen said, leave that to me. So they all go back in, they sit down, and this foreman poses this question to the Irishman. He says, you're in the switch tower. He says, you've got a locomotive coming at you 60 miles per hour from the west to the east on track 9. You're in the switch tower, and the same train, on the same line, line 9, you have another locomotive coming from the east to the west at 63 miles an hour. They're both on the same track, and they're coming together. What are you going to do? Well, the Irishman is now confident. He says, very simple. He says, I'm going to pull the switch. I'm going to put one of the trains on the side track. They'll miss each other. Things will be just fine. The foreman says, yeah, but what happens if the switch is frozen and you can't move it? So the Irishman now knows what's going on here. And he says, well, I'll tell you. He says, I'm going to call my brother. And he says, you're going to call your brother? What are you going to do that for? He says, because surely my brother has never seen a train wreck before. And that's exactly what we're talking about with logic and common sense. My name is Dennis Galvin. I am the Republican candidate for state representative in the 2nd Middlesex District. And I'm running for office because I am deeply concerned about the direction of this Commonwealth and the effect that it's going to have on my children and my grandchildren. I ran for this office, as many of you know, 10 years ago, and in the intervening years that have passed, our economy remains precarious, our job market continues to constrict, there are still more productive people leaving the state than coming into it, the middle class is evaporating, our access to state resources is diminishing, our efforts to control child abuse, the illicit drug trade, and violence in this society are less than robust. And the U.S. Attorney says that we have a culture of corruption, present company excluded, on Beacon Hill. Now, I ran for this office in 2004, and when I ran then, only one House Speaker had been convicted of corruption. Since that time, 2 additional House Speakers have been convicted for corruption, and the current House Speaker, by his actions in the probation scandal, have raised serious cause for concern. Now, the root cause of our problems on Beacon Hill is the fact that too much power has accumulated in the hands of one political party to the point where the people's business is being conducted by a machine. And whether it's Mayor Daley in Chicago, Tammany Hall in New York, or the Democratic Party on Beacon Hill, the operating principle behind machine politics remains the same: quid pro quo. Some people get benefits, privileges, and opportunities that others don't in return for their blind allegiance, their money, and their vote. It's an arrangement based on naked self-interest, and in my judgment, it's a perversion of the spirit and principles of American democracy. Now, machine politics suffers from one major limitation, and that is there aren't enough benefits, privileges, or opportunities to go along. So ultimately, they must take from the productive sectors of society and give to the unproductive. The focus of state policy changes from what can best benefit all of the people to what can best maintain and perpetuate the political machine. A government by machine politics is inherently unfair, it is secretive, oppressive, and it is totally unresponsive to the needs of the average citizen. Now, in any society governed by such an arrangement, there are inevitably going to be winners and losers. And in my judgment, The second Middlesex has been a net loser. We are a district of hardworking, productive people who care about our families and want to build a future here in Massachusetts. Yet, our economic opportunities are being limited, our tax burden is increasing, our access to state aid remains stagnant while unfunded state mandates and the state budget continue to increase. In the last 4 years, our state budget has increased by $8 billion. Now, our voice is being drowned out by a crescendo of special interests. And the limitations imposed on our legislature by one-party rule are significantly limiting the options available to us to address the problems we face. You take this and you couple it with a record of corruption, and most of our citizens are becoming alienated from state government. We can do better than this. We have to do better than this. It's time for a change. Now, we need leaders on Beacon Hill, not followers. We need representation that is bold enough and independent enough to vigorously press the needs and concerns of this district, yet is flexible enough and free from the constraints of party discipline to step across party lines, step outside of the status quo, and help build new coalitions to better address the needs of our communities. We need representation that has the integrity and the competence to be able to help formulate statewide policies that will benefit all the people of this Commonwealth, not just a few, and in so doing dramatically improve the conditions in this district. Now, we have heard a lot about hope in the last 6 years, but I want to remind you that, in the words of General Gordon Sullivan, that hope is not a method. Without tangible results, it means nothing. My campaign is about restoring opportunity through revitalizing our economy and by reforming our government. Now, any effort to try to reform our economy must begin by acknowledging that it is the private sector, not the government, that will lead us out of our economic doldrums. And this will be done through an expansion of private sector investment, leading to the development of new products and new services. And we can do this with due sensitivity to the environment and to the principles of smart growth. But we cannot forget that it is the commerce in products and services that creates wealth, and it is from wealth that we derive the revenues necessary to support the essential elements of our government, essential services of our government. Any state policy that obstructs the development of wealth needs to be seriously reviewed and, if necessary, discarded. And that little voice you hear back there is my granddaughter, who has political aspirations of her own. But she's going to have to wait a few more years. Now, each of our communities has to be assured that they will receive a fair share of state resources so they can educate their children and provide protection for their citizens. Excellence in education must be maintained as a core state value so that we can be assured that our children and grandchildren will have the tools necessary to compete in the global sector economy. And for their sake, we must heighten and expand our efforts to combat child abuse, the illicit drug trade, and violence in this society. Finally, we must restore fairness, openness, and responsiveness to Beacon Hill by promoting vigorous debate, diversity of opinion, and by demanding effective oversight of state government programs and services. And this can be thank you. This can be immediately advanced by restoring a bipartisan government to Beacon Hill. Now, the question of corruption, the problem of corruption is horrendous, and it will take direct action to try to address. Back in 2011, the Republicans offered a ethics reform proposal that would have required each legislator to report criminal activity or unethical conduct by other members of the House or Senate or their staffs, irregardless of their parties. That measure never passed. Now, I stand before you today and I make this pledge. If you elect me as your state representative, I will adhere to that standard of conduct, and I invite my opponent to join me in that pledge. It is far more important for you, the voters of this district, to have full faith and confidence in your legislative process than it is for your state representatives to be out there building allegiances with Beacon Hill politicians. So this is what my campaign is about. This is what you'll be working to accomplish should you decide to join and help me, and I invite you all. I need your help, as Shauna says. But I want to leave you with this. It is time for this district to elect a representative to Beacon Hill and not a Beacon Hill representative to this district. And if you vote for me on November 4th, 2014, Dennis J. Galvin, I promise you that is what you will get. Thank you very much. The website. My website, just so everybody knows, is www.galvin4staterep.com.
Vote Galvin!